Hey everybody, it's Eric live alongside Rod with our Rutgers post-game show sponsored by Fanduel Sportsbook. Your go-to source for betting on the sports you love to watch, whether it's a parlay or you just want to stick to the money line, you'll find all the odds you need on the Fanduel app. Easy to download, you can get started right away. Head on over to our vote on our Fanduel player of the game at slido.com, hashtag TIFNOTS, that's TFFINOTS. There you can join in, and especially at the post-game show after the Rutgers game, which will be a little bit later, we can figure out who the player of the game is based on you and Rod. Special thanks, as always, to Patreon supporters at the Mateen Cleaves level: Bill Church, Brian O'Donnell, Michael Bosnick, Chad Hickey, Mike Huntoon, and Scott Driscoll, as well as Draymond Green supporters Adam Walzak, Dan Rankin, Jim L., Paul Marsh, Greg Bamer, all the Scott Scowl supporters as well, including Rich Wagenheim, Kenneth Cremett, Roger Bronsick, Al, Mike Umbrich, and Joe VT and Jim Rainey on Substack. You can either be a monthly supporter on either one, Patreon or Substack. If you want to find the way to do that, head over to our support page at tffinots.com/support. Get the necessary links. Okay, Rod, Michigan State finished up its regular home season, or home regular season, I should say, on Thursday night against Rutgers Scarlet Knights. This will be Michigan State's second double play of the season. Their first one was just last game, and their first game against Rutgers in New Jersey was a doozy, as the Knights took Michigan State to overtime. Or maybe a better, more accurate way to put it is Michigan State forced the game into overtime with a crazy second half comeback, requiring a Divine Ugochukwu 3 on Michigan State's last possession in regulation. Then they carried on through overtime and pretty easily won from there. But it was kind of maybe a trap game going into the Wolverines game, which was the next home game for Michigan State. It certainly felt like the Spartans weren't playing quite as well as and then they ended up tripping up not only to Michigan but then to Minnesota. So now they're coming off the first road sweep of the state of Indiana since 2014. They're going to come back for Senior Day and a win here. Michigan State probably has it worse, a 3 seed locked up for the NCAA tournament, sitting with a chance at a 2 seed maybe. Certainly not a must win in terms of getting into the NCAA tournament, but obviously matters somewhat for seeding. But probably more importantly, it's a game not only they ought to get, but a way to continue positive momentum before going to the game at Chrysler for the season finale, which I know they want that as a revenge game. That's, of course, Michigan State's third triple play. This would, I think ordinarily you'd say this would be another trap game, since this is, again, Rutgers is falling right before the Michigan game. Although I think with the way they were scared last time, you'd hope that it wouldn't be quite the same situation this time.
Well, we're going to return to that at the end when we get to keys. But yes, I agree that you'd hope it wouldn't happen, but it does set up in a somewhat similar fashion because, again, you've got Michigan looming as the next game. There are differences in the situation, most notably that this one's at Breslin. But, it's certainly worth keeping in mind. I think, you look at the season Rutgers has had, and I guess I would say
good and bad, hard to say, right?
I might say it's ever so slightly better than I thought, barely.
Yeah,
but mostly probably about 90% on target. It's been helped. The picture's been helped by the fact that they've won 3 of their last 5 games. Now, you have to keep in mind 2 of those wins were against Maryland, and the other one was against Penn State. So I don't know how much it proves, other than they're not the worst team in the conference. It proves that.
Yeah.
But and I thought that was, I don't recall, did I pick them last?
I will check. I think maybe so.
Did I? Okay.
Well, we'll see. So I'll check, but you keep going.
So if that's the case, they've probably, as I say, slightly exceeded those expectations. But look, they're 12-17 overall, 5-13 in the league. They're number 144 in KenPom. So in this case, sometimes you have a departure between what the predictive metrics tell us about a team and what the record says. In this case, they're in alignment. That they're just not a very good team, But as you said, everybody listening to this is going to recall that MSU had a devil of a time with them at the rack in late January. So, it's not to go too far on the Peichel discussion. I think you have had this feeling that they might separate from him. I do not see that. We'll see.
You had him last, which is
I did. Okay, so they have exceeded that expectation a little bit, and I'll tell you honestly, looking at them, just my eye test, Um, I'm not sure that I still at this point believe that there's a worse team than they are. I mean, I like Penn State's talent better than theirs. The problem Penn State has is they're all freshmen. Rutgers has a lot of freshmen too, but they're getting more from their veterans than Penn State is. That's for sure. You know, anybody else? I mean, Northwestern is a better team. Oregon certainly, now that they've got Biddle back, is a better team. Minnesota's been massively better.
Yep.
I mean, Maryland would be the one. And I guess that, you know, we've all kind of been shocked a little bit by just how truly awful Maryland's been. But, you know, when you think about it from that perspective, you got to give Steve Pikiell a little bit of credit. I think he's managed to get a lot out of a roster that just isn't very good. And he is a good coach. None of that's surprising to me. But it's all a far cry from what we were talking about even like 3 years ago with this program, where it just seemed like he had gotten it to a level where they were going to be able to consistently compete, not for Big Ten titles, but to be an NCAA tournament team at least every other year type of thing. I think it's very clear to me, at least, that no program in the conference has been more negatively affected by the changes in the transfer portal and NIL as Rutgers.
Yeah.
Because his building process really started and solidified before that stuff really kicked in. And since it's kicked in, they've definitely taken a step back, or a couple steps back.
They've had the foundation ripped right out from underneath them.
But I don't think he's going to be fired. I really don't.
No, I agree now too. I felt differently about a month ago, and now they've been, you know, they've gotten some wins. They look a little bit like the old Rutgers in some ways, right? They don't seem quite.
Well, here's how they do. What they share in common with those teams is you don't doubt the effort level.
That's exactly
that part is true. The problem is, even his worst Rutgers teams, they had very clear identities. They rebounded well and they defended. This team is not good in those areas.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not fully the old Rutgers by any means, but the effort level is.
Yeah. And I think that's just, how hard they play sort of reminds me of the other teams. I mean, for this season, they're 12-17 overall. They're 5-13 in the Big Ten, which again, not great, but with as bad as some of the teams are at the bottom of the Big Ten, 5 is not terrible. And that probably puts them almost certainly out of playing on Tuesday. So I think they on the Big Ten tournament, which
I haven't looked at the bottom end of the standings lately.
I mean, I think they have a 75% chance of not being in assuming things go according to metrics, they should make it into.
Well, I mean, honestly, they're ahead of 3 teams. They're ahead of Maryland, Oregon, and Penn State.
Right.
So
and they're
tied with Northwestern.
They're ahead of Northwestern on the tiebreaker.
So they're ahead of 4 teams. So you're right. It's 4 teams play on Tuesday.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I can't keep up with the sack race. So you're my sack race guy.
That's right. I'm the sad sack going to the sack race.
But I mean, honestly, they're only a game behind Washington.
No,
if they pull it off, they could really. I mean, it's pretty remarkable considering. I look at these teams, and as I say, Maryland's the only one that I'm not even sure I'd grant you that, where you could look at it and say, yeah, that team is better than Rutgers from a talent perspective.
Right. I mean, if you look at just the overall network the metrics for Rutgers, I mean, they're 144th overall on KenPom, which is pretty bad.
For Big Ten.
For a Big Ten team, yeah, right. And then, as we mentioned, it was a close game before, but like you said, they've won 3 of the last 5. And, you know, and offensively, they're not good. They're 157th, it seems like that is the old Rutgers teams that just could not really score very well.
Yep.
A lot of problems. They're 331st from 2, which is about as bad as you can get. And they're 293rd from 3, which isn't really that good either. Barely under like 31.5%.
Really? 293 isn't that good either.
No,
you're kind of burying the lead there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they don't offensive rebound really well, which is one thing I guess you like you said, that's one of their identities. They
That's
can
a
at least off
huge
rebound at
difference.
both ends, and that would
They
you
are
could
they
miss a
are
bunch. Yeah.
they are a horrible rebounding team, both ends.
Yeah.
That
100,
is the biggest departure.
198th offensive rebounding team. Uh, and then they're 175th.
No,
Oh,
I'm
I guess
sorry.
they're going from
They're
190th. They're now
175th. They were
175th. Yeah.
actually
They've gotten better.
no, they've gotten worse. That's I have a digit there that shouldn't be there. They were
Oh, okay.
98th in the country going into the first
Okay.
MSU game. They have fallen to 175 now.
Now that they've gone through
In the
the full Big
space
Ten
of
space.
in the space of barely 5 weeks.
Yeah. Well, that's probably 12 Big Ten games, though, right? I mean, I think something
10,
like that, or 10. Yeah.
9 or
So
10.
that's, that again, you're playing different competition, right? And another
Yeah.
10 games of Big Ten teams.
It's enough,
They don't,
obviously, to make that kind of
right,
movement.
right. Yeah. Offensive foul rate, they're 117th. So they're okay getting the line, not great.
Yeah.
Their turnover percentage is 74. So they don't turn the ball over a ton. That's a relative strength, I guess, on offense.
That's it. Those are the only things, if you, again, I've mentioned this before. Those of you who are familiar with KenPom, the color scheme. Green, varying shades of green are good. The greener, the better. Varying shades of red are bad. The redder, the worse. Not a lot of green on the Rutgers profile offensively.
I imagine those are just sort of very light green, right? And not even, and the white is kind of like in between, right?
There's no emerald, yeah, or Kelly green. There's none of that. There's very, very light mint in some spots.
Appropriate for a Shamrock Shake season. So on defense, not any better. They're 155th, so they're consistently same metrics there. They're not very good from two. They were 108th when they played Michigan State, and now they're down to 196th.
Yep.
Against the threes, they're 325th. So again, you can't get much worse from three. Defensive rebounding is 311th, which is hard to imagine for a Big Ten team.
Yep.
And I guess they don't foul much at 66, but again, this is one of those. Is that really a good thing?
What does it really tell you? Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, it's an ugly picture. I mean,
but they've won 5 games, right? That's the thing. That's kind of crazy, but it just shows you something about.
I mean, that you look at this, and by the way, I do think in this
and
case,
they almost beat Michigan State.
The predictive metrics that we talk about via KenPom match up to what my eyes tell me this team is, which is God, these guys are bad. That's what my eyes tell me, and the metrics tell me that. And somehow they've won 5 games in the league. And as you said, they're not even, it doesn't look likely they're going to play on Tuesday. That's a huge accomplishment. So you say, how are they doing that? Well, we can also say we've experienced it. How the hell did they take Michigan State in overtime?
Exactly.
Even at home. You look at these numbers and you say Michigan State, play them at the rack, play them at Breslin, play them on the moon, shouldn't matter. They should go win by 30, right? I mean, that's what the numbers would tell you, but they've had bad nights. They've had plenty of bad nights, but they've also had nights where they didn't win, but they were able to be competitive. And then they've had 5 nights where they won. So that's something is causing that. And it's not just luck. I do think it's that. I know Steve Peichel, look, I was a big fan, and then he irritated me a few years ago with the way he handled a COVID situation, a scheduling situation. Oh, it wasn't COVID.
No, it was the
shooting. It was the shooting.
At February 13th.
Scheduling situation with Michigan State. I didn't like that. But look, give the man his due. He's a good basketball coach. He's very limited because of circumstances that are outside of his control, to some extent at least, in terms of what will allow him to bring in sufficient talent to really compete in this league. But by now, we've seen enough of Steve Peichel to know he's a good basketball coach. And I think that's why they've overachieved, because these numbers are like a crime scene.
You mentioned the moon, just maybe started thinking how high Cone Carr could jump on the moon. I'd have to figure that out. I'm sure there's a
show. Yeah.
I can only get into orbit there or something. And then finally is tempo for Rutgers. They're 220th average length of offensive possession, 250th in overall tempo, which is kind of like, I wouldn't say average, maybe slightly below average in the Big Ten, but not anything outside of like crazy.
No, they're slow. They're slower teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Purdue's slower, I believe. Probably a couple of others.
Yeah, I think, and I don't think Michigan State's much different than 250. I think they're maybe a little bit faster, but not a ton. I don't think.
Let's see.
I'll
Just
let you check it out.
for comparison's sake. You're probably right, but we'll confirm it. Yeah, Michigan State's tempo is actually slower at 276.
Yeah, so there you go.
Their average length of offensive possession is slightly faster at 210.
So,
So
maybe they just slow people down in defense.
Better Michigan State defense means a slower overall tempo, but they're in the same ballpark.
Well, you got Michigan State up there real quick. We don't really ever talk about Michigan State's numbers. Why don't you kind of tell us what Michigan State offense is?
Good opportunity to talk about something I mentioned on the Spartan Mag board today. Michigan State, everybody listening to this knows what's the problem with Michigan State. Why do people not think they have a legitimate chance to get to a Final Four if they believe that, or to win a national championship, which almost everybody believes they don't have.
So you have to be, what is it that you have to be the top 25 in offense and defense? Is that
or top 30? It varies.
Top 30, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and offense has lagged all year.
Right.
They are up to 34th nationally offensively. They're 6th defensively, which, there was a period they were at number 1 when they went through, early to mid-February. It slipped a little bit, but still number 6, pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But up to 34th in offense. So offensive rebounding, number 9. They kind of been in that. They're the number 1 defensive rebounding team in America. Offensive rebounding has kind of hovered. I think it's gotten as high as maybe 4th.
Yeah, I think so.
But ninth is about right. They're a middling team in terms of getting to the line at number 162. So right there squarely in the middle. The 3-point percentage, 35.6%, which is up to number 88 nationally. That means they're in the top quarter of teams in America shooting from 3. Any time, and you're going to hear it on broadcasts because we've been hearing it all year. When people talk about, 3-point shooting's the big issue with Michigan State, you're hearing from someone who doesn't understand reality. Right. They're not looking at it, or they misunderstand it, or like many broadcasters, they fall into groupthink or tropes that never get updated. The worst
like last year. Right.
The absolute all-time king of the worst in that regard was Dan Dockett, who I'm sure nobody misses. But when he was doing color on broadcast, he was the king of starting a game with a talking point, and regardless of what was happening on the floor, never letting go of it. It was unreal. Like you could even just a normal person would say, boy, everything I saw on film and all the stats told me it wasn't going to be this way, but we're seeing at least for a day it is. He would never even go that far. It was crazy. Anyway, so 3-point shooting, not a problem for Michigan State. 2-point shooting, they're at number 104, and they've kind of been hovering right around that 100 mark lately. They made a real push like the first, say, 4 weeks of January and got much better finishing from 2, because there was a point they were bordering on being outside the top 200. Even during all that great non-conference performance, they were not good from 2. So that's gotten a lot better, but it seems to have kind of plateaued. We saw it this past week, right? Fantastic against Purdue. Great start against Indiana, but didn't finish well. So that, to me, is the issue. And some of it is we are seeing the effect of the lack of a second creator. I mean, Jordan Scott's done better in that area, but I don't think anybody believes he's a full-on dynamic force with the ball.
No, not even close. Yeah.
It's one of the things they miss with Divine's gone, is they don't have that second guy who is capable of doing that. It's fears or bust. So that's impacting the 2-point shooting to some degree. But I also think, finishing around the rim has been inconsistent at times. And we always talk about this, converting offensive rebounding into points via putbacks, like stuff that's right at the rim, that hasn't been good enough. So if you're looking for the offensive limitation, get off the 3-point jag and start actually getting to the reality of it, which is they are not as good from two as they need to be in order to be a truly top tier offense. Now, look, number 34 in the country, I'm not crying about that at this point. That's not bad. It's just not elite. Free throw percentage. And again, there's another thing. People I love, you can always tell somebody who doesn't pay close enough attention but thinks they do. Where after you might have a rough game or you miss a couple big free throws, like, why doesn't it work with these guys at practice? Just the most asinine, stupid shit you can imagine. Well, guess what? Michigan State's number 64 in the country in free throw percentage. 75.7% as a team, so almost 76%.
They've come up a long ways. I feel like they're a lot lower than that.
You know what that number is? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Not elite, pretty good. Probably not going to be a reason anything can happen in any individual game, but that's not a reason that they're not a 1 seed, is their free throw shooting. Right. That's been championship caliber. So, yeah, offensively, it's been great. Defensively, I said this weeks and weeks ago, and it's still mostly true. This team is good at limiting shot success, but they're not elite. They're number 49 against threes. They're number 40 against twos. So that's good. Those are good numbers, but they're not like top tier.
Yeah, they're not locked down.
Why they are a number 6 team overall, though, number 1 defensive rebounding team and number 62 in defensive foul rate.
Yeah.
So the fact that they've been able to defend without putting people on the line to get cheap points and that they just don't give you second chances, that's why they're an elite defense. So anyway, that's the Michigan State story.
And I guess the other thing too is because they're not quite as good with twos, I think it definitely affects them a little bit more because they're more two dependent than other teams that may shoot more threes, right? So
yes, 100%. That's why it matters more. Yes, that they are not a heavy volume 3-point shooting team on an overall basis. We've seen there could be given games where they shoot more than in others, but across the board, you go into any Michigan State game, you are not anticipating they're going to take a ton of threes. You're going to assume the attempts are going to be, in the lowish 20s, maybe getting into the mid 20s, rarely high 20s or 30s. Rarely.
Yeah, I feel like the high teens is usually where they are, but maybe that's a little bit lower.
High teens typical. To low 20s.
Yeah. Like, they had 24 against
20,
Indiana.
22. Yeah.
It felt like kind of a lot of, 12 of 24, maybe just because they hit so many that it sort of became more impactful, that just you kind of appreciated the shots more. But
wasn't the UCLA game they got into the 30s, didn't they?
That's true. I think they did.
That's a real outlier. Yeah. Whereas if you're Wisconsin or you're Illinois or you're Indiana, that's a Tuesday night.
Right? Yeah, Wisconsin's jacking 45 against
it's just
Ohio State or something.
But you're absolutely right, and that should never be forgotten. Also, when you hear some dummy banging on and on and on about 3-point shooting. Look, you want it. I'm not saying it doesn't have value or that it doesn't matter. Not at all. It matters, but it doesn't matter as much as a lot of people seem to want to think. In part because they just don't take a lot of them.
Right. All right. So that brings us to our FanDuel Interesting Wager. Of course, we record this long before the game. There's not a game that there's going to be a lot of money on, I don't think. Compared to, it's not like I think the Michigan State line will probably come out on Friday, is my hunch. For that game, because there's going to be so many people active on that. But FanDuel does not have any odds up for this right now. Of course, FanDuel's place to go for all your betting needs or wants. Bartovicus is about a 20-point favorite for Michigan State.
Ken Pom has MSU by 21, so figure 20 and a half.
That is a lot of points to take.
It's a big number, big hook.
How comfortable would you feel with that? I think we both know that they'd be capable of it, but that is a lot of points. And I do have a feeling that Michigan State, not that they're going to rest people and not that Jeremy Fears won't play a decent amount of minutes, but you could definitely see a lot. I expect that we're going to see Jesse McCullough. I think we'll see some Trey Ford, even barring, foul issues or things like that. I think you're going to see runs more of those guys just to kind of get them some minutes and let the starters rest a little bit. Assuming there's a working margin. So also think that reason at 20 it seems like a really big number.
It is. And yeah, I'm with you in that you're never, I mean, if they were playing a mid-major team, we've seen enough Michigan State basketball over the years. We know this is not a program that historically specializes in the massive blowout. And 20 and a half points is a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Now they beat them by 43, so it's not like they can't do it at home. I
they
mean,
have, and they've, and they pounded, UCLA. I mean, they've pounded some people that are actually better, way better than Rutgers. IU, Iowa. But yeah, I would probably be a little bit hesitant. If the line was like 15 even, I might feel a little more comfortable, but 20 and a half, yeah, that really, it means that what you're saying there is Michigan State's going to play really well and Rutgers is going to be as bad as their numbers suggest they are. Yeah. And so probably both of those things would have to happen in order for it to be an easy cover. So I'd probably just stay away from it, honestly. I know that's not, I'm not telling you to do that, of course. We want you to gamble with FanDuel as much as possible.
If you have to gamble.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a tough one for me.
Some other things you might want to you'd be more interested in perhaps is it's kind of interesting to see what the lines are now moving to reach the Final Four. We still have Michigan as the favorite to reach the Final Four, which I don't know if that's not taking into account the loss of LJK side.
No,
we don't really know
that hasn't changed.
We don't know if that's going to affect things. I don't think we'll know for.
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, and a preview of what we'll be discussing in a few days.
Right, exactly.
It's a problem, and the reason it's a problem is one that I wouldn't have necessarily foreseen in October, because
I don't think we've talked about it before the first game.
I was not on the LJK San train.
Right.
I really did not think and I remember talking about this, pointing out that for all the negative talk from some MSU quarters about how Divine Ugochukwu was a waste of an ad, that his numbers as a true freshman were actually, his shooting numbers, which was supposed to be the problem, were comparable to Kayson's, who Michigan fans somehow believed was a great answer. Well, I will say, at a certain point in Big Ten play, Kayson started shooting the lights out.
Yeah.
And he became, now he's never been a great point guard. He's not a great decision maker. He's not a guy who's particularly dynamic in making things happen for others, but he became a very reliable shooter. And that was a big deal because it meant on nights where Cadeau was garbage, which do happen, where he's throwing the ball all around the gym and shots aren't dropping and he's committing dumb fouls and he's defensively inconsistent. Those things happen with him.
Yeah.
They had another answer, and Kayson was consistently showing up over January and February. He really started to come on. So now he's done. So you are dealing with the Elliot Cadeau show fully. And if he's not making it happen, or he's in foul trouble, which happens to him occasionally, they've now got a choice, as I see it, between two realistic options. One is something they've tried a little bit this year anyway, which is giving Trey McKinney some point guard minutes. Trey McKinney has had a great year, better than I thought he would as a shooter, much better. And he's about as good defensively as I thought he was going to be. He is not a point guard. They have looked terrible when he's been at the point. So I don't think that's the option, but it's possible that they go that way. The other one, the one I would probably try if I had the misfortune to be Dusty May, is because I have to live with myself, is to do some version of what they did last year with Wolf, where they get the ball up court however they need to get it up there, and then in the half court, run the offense through Yaks. That's what I would do. The only problem with it is, and we talk about this when people say, why not give Jordan Scott 3 minutes at the point, is it's going to force them to change the way they play.
Right.
For whatever it is. Now in their case, it's different than MSU. They're probably not talking about, well, we just need to get 4 to 6 minutes out of them, out of whatever we do. They're probably talking about a little bit more than that. So maybe they'd be more comfortable changing some stuff for those minutes. But I know I would think very strongly about trying the latter move as opposed to not only the fact that Trey McKinney hasn't looked good when they've tried to do that with him, but it's the same thing as with Jordan Scott. The guy's having a great year in the role that he's in. Do you really want to risk seeing it turn the other direction?
Right.
By putting more on his plate for a true freshman? I don't know that you want to do that. So that's what I see are the two most likely answers. But it's an issue because, again, single elimination tournament. All it takes is the one game where Cadeau is garbage or he's in foul trouble and your answer is not there for those minutes he's not on the floor and you get beat.
Yeah.
That's all it takes is once. So I'm not saying it kills their dream. I'm not even saying that Vegas is wrong in that, or bettors are wrong and that the line hasn't really moved much since the injury. But they are, at the very least, if you are being honest, you have to say there is a true vulnerability there that did not exist in the same way before he got hurt.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be playing simultaneously in Iowa City when Michigan State is playing Rutgers. I don't think even with that, I don't think that's enough for Iowa to pull off an upset, although that's going to be it's one desperate team on senior day, in Iowa City, I suppose. So,
and Michigan has nothing to play for. So, well, I shouldn't say that. They're still trying to make absolutely certain they got a 1 seed locked, which I'm pretty comfortable with if they do.
Yeah, I don't think Dom really makes me feel like this no way
if they took that. I mean, this is in the almost near 0% likelihood.
Yeah.
But if somehow they lost to Iowa, Michigan State, and the first Big Ten tournament game, maybe we'd be talking about it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not. That's how good their metrics case is.
Yeah,
but I don't think you could say 100% certain a 1 seed is locked.
No, I suppose. Although in talking to Tom, it really seemed like there was a huge separation between the first 3, that's Duke, Arizona, and Michigan.
That's why
and Connecticut.
That's why I say even 3 straight losses, it's only a maybe.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's interesting looking at the FanDuel. So right now, you look at the odds for reaching the Final Four. Of course, Michigan's minus 185, Duke's minus 165, Arizona minus 115. Then you have Florida plus 135, Houston plus 200, then Illinois at plus 340, Iowa State plus 380.
Fade Illinois. Fade them.
Well, I've been surprised that Purdue's plus 1,000 and Michigan State's plus 1,100. Like they still have. Well, that just shows you how much metrics are still driving things.
Go.
Because,
there you go. That's it. That's it entirely.
Purdue kind of faded. They faded down the stretch last year, and then they showed up and did okay in the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, they
got to the Sweet 16 and they took Houston to the wire. Yeah, it's a fair point, and sir, let's put it this way: for all their obvious vulnerabilities and objectively. If they're playing tomorrow on a neutral site, Illinois and Purdue, who do I take to win that game? Right now, I'm taking Illinois. Like, no questions asked. I'm taking Illinois. But if the question is which team's more likely to get to at least an Elite Eight, I'd probably go with Purdue. And it's not because I think they're objectively a better team, but I hate Illinois' offensive imbalance so much that I just have a harder time believing that they could find a way to get on a 2-weekend run. Whereas Purdue, even despite the vulnerabilities they've shown, I'd give them a little better chance. Not much, but a little better chance.
Yeah. Well, the odds are better than when I thought I had pretty good odds for Michigan State. I had plus 900, so now it's plus 1,100. So it's gotten
worse.
Yeah, since whenever I did. Let's see. I can't remember when I put it in.
Did you do it before the Michigan game?
Let's see. Yeah, January 18th. Must have been before that. January 18th.
Yeah, I guess I could kind of understand it because at that point, Michigan State only had 2 losses and only 1 in the league.
Their
And
metrics got a little bit worse,
they were
right?
kind of rolling. They were kind of
Yeah.
rolling at that point. Whereas since then, we've seen the bumps in the road. And
Yeah.
truthfully, the resurgence here is a week old right now.
Yeah, but it's 2 games really, right? I mean,
they're on a 4-game winning streak, but the Ohio State game, UCLA was fine. That would qualify. But the Ohio State game did not convince anybody that, oh, they figured it out.
No, not at all. All right. One thing you don't have to convince anyone of is how great the Brothers Adjust Your Gutters are. They will take care of your gutters. They'll take care of your downspouts, whatever it might be. They can take care of it, replace, repairing, or fixing anything as far as your gutters go. Your downspouts, they can put they clean out the leaves. They can put their leaf guards on. They'll get up on the ladders and take care of all that stuff because you shouldn't have to. You get 10% off as a listener to the show simply by mentioning Final Four, whether you're on the east or the west side of the state. Head over to our support page at the Final Four is on the schedule.com/support. There you can find links for Kurt and Greg. Take care of that now. Spring showers are coming at some point here. We've now reached March. It won't be long. The snow's probably melted off your roof, but there's going to be a lot of other wet stuff coming down since we do live in the state of Michigan. And it's sunny out right now as we're recording this, but I know we still got a lot of cloudy weather ahead of us until we hit summer, right? So head on over to now and have them take care of things. Of course, they sponsor who Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter, and which will become pretty obvious, I think, after we get through the starting lineup with Rutgers. And we'll begin with Tariq Francis. He's a 6'1" junior transfer from NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. And he's scoring 23 points. He scored 23 points in the first matchup with Michigan State. He's averaging 16 points, 6 points a game, shooting 43, 32, 91. It's not fantastic from outside, but he also is dynamic in that he has 80 assists just in 29 games, better than 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, and averages almost 5 free throw attempts a game.
Yeah, he's by far their biggest threat. So there's your sneak preview of what the answer to that question is. Look, you saw it in the first game. He was dynamite. Michigan State really struggled with him. We'll talk about it more when we get to the keys in terms of how they struggle with him. But the bottom line is he's not a great jump shooter. He's good enough that you got to respect him. You got to honor him out there, but he's not great. But he knows that, and he plays accordingly. So I really like his game. I mean, if he were on a bet, like nobody's talking about him really because Rutgers is Rutgers, right? But if he was on an upper tier team, you'd be hearing talk about him for being on an all conference team, a selection at some point, some level. I mean, he's been that good. So one of the more dynamic guards in the conference for sure, and clearly their best player.
Speaking of which, doesn't it seem sort of strange to you that the all conference teams don't increase in size despite the Big Ten basically doubling? Like the likelihood of you making onto first team
they never
Big Ten,
will.
right?
They never will because it's supposed to mirror how many guys are on the court. So it's always going to be 5.
Yeah, but I mean, like you could have 2. I know what you're saying. It just seems weird that it seems harder and harder to get on that list.
Well, you're
obviously.
right. I mean, it is harder now because there's more competition.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And most teams have at least 1 or 2 really good players, and just
which is why I think. But I think what that may end up meaning is that it's always kind of been this way, but maybe even more so that team success is going to have a real input. It's going to be a real factor in terms of whether it's not enough to just put points up. Like, for example, we just saw Wilkerson, right, at Indiana. That kid's as good an offensive scorer as any wing in this league. He might be leading the league in scoring. I guess I haven't focused on that. He's got to be right there. He's at 21 a night.
I mean, Martinelli might be, I think, is still leading the league, but he's
maybe
probably pretty close.
Okay.
But either way, they're both the same.
But they're right. But Wilkerson's right. Wilkerson's a good example of this, though. Nobody's talking about him as a first team all conference guy.
No.
It's Indiana's 8 and 10.
Yeah. Next up is Caden Powers, 6'4" freshman out of Seattle. He's averaging 6.6 points a game, shooting 35, 31, and 82, and averaging about 17 minutes a game. So again, he's 31%, but that's right about an average for Rutgers as a team.
Yeah, and decent. Powers is an unheralded freshman. Not a high level recruit. So they've gotten decent production out of him, I think, relative to expectations. But when you look at the way the minutes have distributed for this team, it's, there's a handful of guys, and it's funny, even Francis, in the first meeting, Francis did not start, and he had not been starting. So the way that Pikel has kind of massaged this roster is interesting, because he's got a guy like Francis that's playing a lot of minutes. His couple of starting bigs play a fair amount, and then it's just kind of by committee with everybody else.
Yeah. Depends on who's on maybe more that day or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Matchup dependent. Next at the 3, we have, is it Lino? Lino Mark, 6'2" freshman. He scored 5 points against Maryland, played 60 minutes since the first start of the season. He's averaging a little under 5 points a game, shooting 38, 19, and 82, and playing, like to your point, playing 14 minutes a game this season.
Now, you might look at those shooting numbers.
38, 19.
That is awful, right?
Yeah.
But it's improved since first game, particularly threes. He was 0 for 20.
That's right.
I believe it was, coming into the Michigan State game, and didn't hit one against them. So he's gotten up over like the next, whatever it is, 9 games or whatever. He's
gotten hot.
He's up to 19%. That actually represents serious improvement. Yeah. So yeah, but again, another lightly recruited freshman. Part of what you've also got to give Pikel credit for in achieving this, we've talked about it, and a lot of people have talked about it, the way that Mike Rhodes at Penn State had just kind of decided, you know what, I got to get off this annual portal train, at least at the levels that most people are doing it, and try to build a program that's going to have some continuity over time. And he's taken lumps. They've struggled to win games. But Pikel's actually done a fair amount of that too, if you look at the youth of this roster, and not quite as much, but enough. And yet they're having a little more success. And I don't think their freshmen are as good as Penn State's. I don't think they're as talented.
Does he? He has at least a decent amount of. I mean, he's got some age on his team too. I can't recall
Michael?
how much. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he does. We get the difference between that. You're right about that. I'm just pointing out that is interesting. But you're right. He also has more veteran help. I mean, Francis is a junior. Right. The other 2 starters in the lineup are veterans. He's got guys like Davis coming off the bench. But then after that, you get to sophomores and freshmen.
Right.
So it's still. He's essentially got in
largely underclassmen,
a 10-man rotation. He's got 4 freshmen and 2 sophomores. So more than half the rotation is either freshmen or sophomores. That's still a young team.
Yeah. Well, speaking of one of those juniors, we have Darren Buchanan, 6'7", transfer from GW. He's averaging 8.4 points a game, 3.3 rebounds a game, shooting 47, 38, and 60. But don't let the 38s fool you, because obviously if he's only averaging 8 points a game, he's not shooting a lot of them.
He had a good game in the first meeting. Michigan State, he had 14 points. He was 4 for 7 from 2, only 1 for 4 from 3, 3 for 5 at the line, and he didn't really contribute much anywhere else. But scoring wise, he was able to be a problem for MSU at dealing with him at the 4. So that's going to be a challenge again. Right out of the chute. You might see Carson Cooper get that assignment rather than Jackson, because Cannon's a little more mobile, 38% shooter from deep. That number's come down since the first meeting. Before the first meeting, he was plus 40, but it's still pretty healthy. Yeah. So he doesn't take a lot of them. He's still only averaging 1 per game, and the accuracy has fallen from 47% to 38%. But still, it's enough that you got to worry about that. So I guess I could see Coop getting that matchup to begin with. But even there, the guy's 6'7". That's a tougher matchup.
Right. Yeah, that's one of those where you never know how to put it. If you think, well, if Cooper's really mobile enough, then 6'7" gives him a massive advantage because he's got 4 inches, and
right.
Or if you think he's not quite as quick, then I don't know. Buchanan's game
Coop is well equipped in a general sense to handle more versatile 4 men, which is why you see them cross cross up their guarding assignments.
Right,
And
right.
again, we also know with the switching Michigan State does, it's not of critical importance because other people are going to be guarding him too. But it is still worth mentioning. I think athletically, Coop's equipped to guard those kind of guys. It's just that possession to possession, and especially if they happen to have a better handle than some, let's say, it could pose more of a challenge for him.
And finally, at the 5, we have Emmanuel Obole, 6'10", 260-pound senior. He's been at Rutgers, I think, the whole time. So he's one of the
3
whole
years.
out. Yeah, 3 years. Okay. So he's averaging 4 points a game, 6.2 rebounds a game to lead the team. Plays only 18 minutes, so despite that, and just has a block game as well. And shooting 55% from the floor and an identical almost 56% from the line.
Yeah, the thing that jumps out at me is 6.2 rebounds in just 18 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, he barely played in the first game. He only played 9 minutes. And that was because of foul trouble. He ended up, he ended with 3 fouls, but I think foul trouble in the first half kind of sat him. And then
they just got rolling, didn't they?
They got rolling and they went small. And they were able to cause Michigan State problems with that, which is not the usual Pikel. Usually Pikel cuts the other way. He wants as much size as he can get, but he doesn't have a particularly big team. Ogbole is really the only legit center in this playing group. But he's been productive. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays a lot in this one, because that will make for a very different game than the first one. Because he's a guy, when he's out there, he's a factor on the glass. He's the one guy they've got that you would say that about.
It makes you wonder too, on some respects too, if you're trying to get minutes for Justin McCullough, is this a lineup that he's going to be able to get much time?
Because you mentioned
pretty
that
small
at the outset, and and I wonder because, not a lot of obvious matchups for him. They might still do it.
I think they're going to try
a working margin.
Yeah.
If they get out to a comfortable lead, probably.
I feel like every press conference, the last 2 or 3, he mentions it, then you get more minutes, and then he's
right.
getting DNPs. And so at some point he's got to get
it's been hard. It's been hard because these teams have had, the most obvious one where you would have thought there would have been an opportunity was Purdue.
Right.
But I think that is where you saw, hey, we're on the road trying to win in a house of horrors, and it's a good team we're facing. They just didn't feel like they could take the risk.
Well, and you look at the minutes too with that Purdue game. I mean,
small.
I was going to say they only had Clough and Jacobs each played like 5 and 6 minutes respectively that second half, and so they were pretty small, like you said. So you couldn't even throw them out there.
It was part of it there as well. But yeah, definitely the ones before that. Ohio State and Indiana. Those are teams that have no choice but to go small. That's what they are.
All right, so let's move on to the reserves then. Begin with Michael Davis, 6'2" junior. He's been in Rutgers the whole time. He's averaging 7.2 points a game on 39, 35, and 75 shooting. Second in the team with assists at 72 and only 25 turnovers. So pretty good. It's almost 3-to-1 ratio.
He is, and he's been a good defensive player at times too. He's been a starter most of the year. He started the first game, but he didn't start the last one. So I'm assuming since they won, they'll keep that intact. But you're going to see a lot of him, and he's one of their better players. He actually had 15 against MSU in the first game. He was, he only took 1 3. He was 3 for 7 from 2. But again, just like Francis, he too got to the line for 8 free throw attempts. So playing downhill was something that they did well in that game.
Next, we have Dylan Grant, who's just like those pennies from Canada, sneaks into Michigan, 6'8", 220-pound sophomore, played in high school here, averaging 10.4 points a game, 4.4 rebounds a game, which are both second on the team coming off the bench, shooting 46, 33, and 72.
Yeah, he's a good player. I like him. He's another guy who started a lot of the year, but has moved to a reserve role lately, but the minutes still stay about the same. He had 11 and 4 in the first game, so he was reasonably productive. And again, as a kid who played his high school basketball in Michigan, more so than anybody else on their team, which they don't have any other Michigan connections to my knowledge on the roster, but I would expect him to be a little bit jacked to play in the Breslin.
Well, of course, there's only one Michigan connection on Michigan State. Michigan State's team as well, just Carson. Then we have Harun Zerno, 6'8", 220-pound freshman, averaging 6.8 points a game, 1.7 rebounds a game, shooting 35, 34, and 77 in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, and his role has increased. It was decent before the MSU game, but it's gotten a little bigger. He's added about 3 minutes playing time per game to his average. And he was lethal
Yeah,
in the first game. You remember, he scored 16 points. He went 4 for 8 from 3. And the problem with him is he's 6'8" already, but he's got a very quick release. So hard to really do a lot to give great contests unless you're really hanging with him. You know, you give him a little bit of space, he's going to be able to get a shot up. And he did that against Michigan State in the first meeting for sure. He was also 2 for 2 on twos. And he had 4 rebounds. So he did a lot of good things in that game.
Yeah, this is what's so fascinating about these double plays, because you have a history and you have a matchup and things that happen the first game. And can you counter that? What they did, is that a real thing, or is that just like a one-off by guys? And so
absolutely
definitely makes these things more interesting.
Yeah.
And saves you work on your write-ups. Then we have Bryce Dortch, 6'9", 220-pound sophomore, averaging 2.2 points a game, 3.2 rebounds a game, plays about 15 minutes, shooting 63% from the floor and 54% from the line.
Yeah, decent finisher, obviously not a high volume shooter.
Right.
But a big that they're, mostly a 4-man type that they're trying to develop.
And then finally, Dennis Badalou, 6'8", freshman from Romania, played in Italy's top professional league and averaging 3.2 points a game, 1.7 rebounds a game, plays about 13 minutes, shooting 31, 22, and 67.
Yeah, his time has decreased a little bit since the first meeting. So I'm not even positive we'll see him, but I'm assuming against Michigan State with the physicality and all of that, they're probably more likely to go a little deeper on their bench. So I've included him, but it's been a tough transition for him.
And so for those who weren't paying attention, who do you have as the player that Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter on Rutgers?
Dennis Badalou, obviously. Tariq Francis.
As a reminder, of course, he'll be, and he's going to operate pretty much as the point too, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, yes, but then when they have he and Davis out there together, they both share the ball.
Yeah. All right. And where no one's been sharing things, that's certainly Rod here. As you can see, I've got the Skull and Crossbones up. It is over for the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. Who cleans the glass best contest?
That is a nice graphic. It took me a second because it's
right.
But yeah.
So if you make sure that you don't have black problems with your windows where you can't see out them, make sure the guys get the grime off. Contact the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. Those guys can come out and clean it out, whether it's your home or your business, high rise, maybe you're a landlord. They'll come out and take care of those windows and keep things nice and clean to make sure you keep the business and that you can see all the pretty birds and things outside, watch the rainfall. Head on over to our support page at the Final Four on the schedule.com/support. There you can get a hold of Troy and his team. And again, you don't have to be in the Grand Rapids area. You can be anywhere sort of Grand Rapids-ish. And that's a pretty large region. They got all the way out to Lansing to take care of things like the state capitol. So give them a call first if you're looking at getting your windows cleaned. They'll do a great job. And of course, they also can power wash your house too, which many houses need this time of year too. So they're out right now. They got the crews out. So get a hold of them today. Get on the schedule. And of course, don't forget, you get 15% off by mentioning Final Four when you get that, your initial estimate. So you have won. You're at 15-11 with 2 to go. So you're up 4. Obviously, you've won. You get to pick first too. So I guess you can just try and run up the score at this point. I can't remember what the over/under was in Vegas, but see if you can pull it off.
Jackson
Kohler. What I should have done last time. Well, I'm obviously going to take Cooper, and I'll just take the classic Cooper and Carr, and I'll leave you Ward. I guess I'm guessing that's who you'll take.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that.
You got nothing to lose. Whatever you.
That's the thing. I can afford to be.
You're just gonna just take seniors. You're gonna take Nick Sanders.
You know what? I'm gonna throw me, but it has a rationale behind it because Rutgers is a little smaller team. Ward will still play a lot.
Yeah,
but I'm going to go Jordan Scott.
Yep. I had
Why
already
not?
started writing down Scott, and you're and you're just goofing around now. You've got
Well,
you're clearing the
I've
bench
freed
here.
up to take more risks.
Yeah. All right.
I'm like a guy in a 20-point game with 3 minutes left who tosses up a heat check.
Well, what place does the Heat Checkers Nudge Printing? Those guys always do great stuff when it comes to Spartan apparel. They have the new Jackson Kohler line, who, man, I tell you what, he might need a heat check here after the last game. Hopefully he keeps that going at what he did against Indiana. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you can get his great NIL gear. You can go to nudgeprinting.com. You can find all the Jackson Kohler stuff. Get hoodies, quarter zip sweatshirts. I think there are t-shirts. And I've got one picture on the screen there. That's just the t-shirt. And of course they sponsor the 5 keys to the game. You don't forget, when you go to Nudge Printing, you go to nudgeprinting.com again. When you do check out, go enter our coupon code, which is TIFNOTS, that's TFFINOTS, to get 20% off your order. Huge selection of things at spring. Get some good spring stuff. You can go get our stuff at tifnots.com nudgeprinting.com/tifnots, says TFFINOTS. There you can get the TFFINOTS selection, collection, I should say, not selection. Yeesh. All right. So let's do the 5 keys of the game. And one of the old standbys that had been gone for a while, and I think the last time I saw it was actually the Rutgers game the first time. Yeah, is the first key of the game, which is play the game, not the opponent.
And last time,
it did not go so well.
Not handle this very well.
No.
So now we kind of were alluding to this at the outset here. There's some similarities, but there are some differences in the situation. Michigan State's coming in riding a 4-game winning streak. At that point, they were riding, God, it was probably a 6 or 7-game winning streak.
I think so.
At that point, yeah. And a great sweep of the state of Indiana, where they really back-to-back games really played well. And they've also got Michigan next, just like they did the last time.
Right.
So it's easy to say, well, that sounds, deja vu all over again, right? And I get that, but I do think there are some differences. One is, I do think Michigan State's 2 most recent games were better. I can't remember what the lead-in was. At Maryland, maybe was the lead-in.
Yes, 43-point win over Maryland at home.
It was I mean, obviously it was a crushing win, but that was a game that was such a laugher from the get-go that how much could you really take from it in the end?
Right.
This past week was not that. Purdue obviously was right there in a tight margin for 40 minutes. And the Indiana game, although Michigan State won comfortably and went wire to wire, it was never a blowout. And again, on the road too. So I do feel like what's immediately leading into this one, Michigan State's playing a little better basketball. The other thing is that the look ahead factor. Is Sunday a big game? Sure, because it always matters when you play Michigan, and especially coming off a loss to them, and especially given the fact that they've got a jackass for a head coach. They got not their whole team, but they got a couple players that I think are pretty unlikable. They got a fan base that's beyond unlikable. So all of that is there, but at the same time, I don't think it's the same situation. You could say, well, Michigan State's playing for seeding, and they might even have a decent chance. I've been surprised, actually, how many bracketologists I've seen today, as we're recording this on Monday, that already have Michigan State on the 2 line. I've been surprised. I'm not saying I believe that's where they are in reality, if you're trying to get a consensus view, but I'm seeing even more on Joe Lunardi.
Well, that may be less. That may be less confident.
It does, right? That's a reason to think, well, that can't be real. But I guess what I'm saying is, you can make the argument that they're playing for that potentially in terms of how much that Michigan game means. But the Big Ten title race is over. They've won it. So that's no longer in play. That's a big deal. The meaning of the first game, they were tied for first, right? Or maybe they were, yeah.
Maybe they're a game back. I don't.
What,
I'm
had
trying to remember now.
Nebraska still undefeated?
I think they were.
I think no, Nebraska took a loss right before that game to Michigan.
But I feel like Michigan State had 2 losses, but maybe not. Maybe they just had the
No,
one.
they only had one.
And Michigan already
lost to Nebraska. Michigan was the second, and then came Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yeah, I guess I don't remember when Michigan lost to Wisconsin, but whatever.
They had lost before that. That's why they were tied with Michigan State.
Yeah, all right.
But that's I guess it just doesn't feel to me like it's the same stakes as the first one.
Well, no, and also I think the other thing is like there are times when this game is big. Like I think it was a couple of years ago when Michigan State had to beat with Michigan in order to make the NCAA tournament, and it certainly felt that way. And they barely made the play.
Yeah, it wasn't. Was it the last game?
It wasn't the last game. It was probably the second to last.
The last, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely. I remember that. And Michigan was Big Ten champs that year.
Yep.
But Howard and obviously last season Michigan State had they locked up? I guess they had locked up the outright championship, but still, it was senior day.
Yeah, senior day.
It was all that
last game of the season. Yeah,
trying to make sure they held on to a 2 seed. There was more there. It just doesn't. I'm not saying there are no stakes, but I think there's far less of an excuse to be peeking ahead at that one.
Yeah.
So MSU's got the reasons why you could expect maybe a little bit of a letdown. I don't think are as obvious, and that they're at home. They're not playing in the RAC, which frankly has been an awful building for Michigan State.
Yeah.
Since Rutgers joined the Big Ten. I mean, even before Pikel really got it going on, they had some struggles there. So.
And they went to overtime last time. It's not like they're going to get caught off guard by Rutgers this time.
There's that too, right? You would certainly hope that alone would grab your attention. Yeah.
Unless you think it's a bad matchup for Michigan State. Yeah,
Michigan State's got to be sharp.
Well, and like I said at the outset too, I think it's important to keep that momentum, to be playing well, heading not only necessarily to Michigan game, but certainly the Big Ten tournament, but to go into the tournament still playing really well. And you don't want to sort of
100%
give it back a little bit right now. It's really, as you point out, it's only been 2 games in a row. Maybe I should say 3 of the last 4 have been good. Although we both felt like UCLA was a little bit,
I don't object to somebody saying that was a good performance. It's just that they weren't strong in some important areas, and they were insane in 3-point shooting. But it was still, you can't say that wasn't a good game.
No, that was definitely a decent performance.
So yeah, 3 of the last 4 they've played well. So it does feel like they're clearly building momentum, but you need to maintain it.
Yeah. All right. So the second key to the game is the glass. As we mentioned, Rutgers is really, really terrible. Well, and I don't have the stats up from the first game. How did Michigan State do against? Yeah, I was gonna say
45. It was a 45-16 advantage in offensive.
Oh my gosh, it just destroyed them, and it barely mattered. I mean, I guess it mattered enough to let them tie the game, but.
Well, and I'd say in this one, the difference does not have to be that dramatic, but Michigan State needs to dominate the boards, because there is something to be said for the fact that Michigan State has not been rebounding fantastically lately. They had a really good second half against Indiana. That was important because it wasn't great against Purdue. It wasn't great against Ohio State. And if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think it was great against UCLA. And when I say great, I'm talking about by the standards of a team that you could make an argument for as the best overall rebounding team in America. It's a high bar, but they need to maintain, take that second half effort against Indiana and let's extend it.
Exactly. Third key to the game is attacking the paint. This is something that, I think we feel like we emphasize every time. And of course, not only attacking, but finishing.
Yep. Yeah, they were fantastic in this area against Purdue, just about as good as they have been all year. Indiana, great start.
Yeah. And
then the second half, I think you mentioned they were, were they like over 60% from 2 in the first half? And
they were 7 for 11. They were 7 for
11 put them in the 60s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're 65%.
And then they ended the game just under 50%.
Yeah. So they were probably 30. They were like 33, 40, 34%.
Can't have that. Can't have that. Rutgers is a poor defensive team against the 2. They're just barely inside the top 200. One thing Michigan State might struggle to do that we often talk about here is it might be tough to get to the foul line a ton because Rutgers just doesn't foul very much. But whether that happens or not, they still need to be attacking, still need to be trying to get the ball into the paint off the dribble. They need to be aggressive on the offensive glass and getting second chance points out of it. They need to be playing effectively in post-up situations, lobs, finishing lobs, something they struggled to do against Indiana. All of that is a must because there's no excuse for not doing it.
Right. And the fourth key to the game are turnovers. This is something at Michigan State, which we really did not touch on too much the last two games. I think they had 15 turnovers in 2 games total, something like that.
Well, no, it's better than that. 3 straight games of single-digit turnovers. One of the few good things about the Ohio State game is they only committed 9 turnovers, and they had 6 against Purdue, which we did talk about because it was a flip. The rebounding was not dominant, but MSU had the edge in turnovers and points off turnovers. And then 9 again yesterday against IU. That's 3 straight games in single digits. That's a big deal. If that trend continues, that is a bullish indicator for MSU's overall offensive output. And it's not something that this team has been particularly great in.
The worst in the Big Ten, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, Rutgers does not get out there and look to force turnovers, but as we know, that's not really MSU's problem. It's self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
So let's hope the recent trend continues.
And the fifth and final key to the game is, of course, Francis himself. The player needs to be kept in the gutter.
Yeah, to say he's the straw that stirs the drink is putting it mildly. He's the guy. And if MSU can make him inefficient, there's just no path for a Rutgers win, in my opinion, barring a miracle. Any legitimate Rutgers possibility has to involve Francis having a big day, big night. You look back at the first game, and they were actually okay against him in terms of his shooting. He was 3 for 9 from 2. That's strong.
Yeah.
And 3 for 8 from 3. But he got 8 free throw attempts.
Yeah.
And it was, when Rutgers shot a lot of, we mentioned, he and their other guard, Davis, each had 8 free throw attempts. So 16 between those two guys on a day where Michigan State only committed 19 fouls. So it wasn't like they were crazy with the fouling. What does that tell you? Well, that tells you, and I'd have to go back to confirm this, but I think I'm probably right, that Rutgers was able to get a lot of fouls on shot attempts. So they were dynamic. They were maybe getting those maybe before they were even in the bonus. That's a concern with Francis. That's what he really did well in that first game. He had 23 points. A third of them came at the line. So you got to limit him. He only takes a third of his shots from 3. We talked about that earlier. He's going to look to get downhill. He wants to attack the lane, attack the rim. That's where his game really lives. And then the jump shooting is a secondary part. If MSU can limit his accuracy the way they did in the first game without putting him on the line, as I said, Rutgers has virtually no chance to win.
Well, and the difference, of course, that game and this game is that Michigan State had Divine Ugochukwu last time, and so that's another 3. That's another 5 fouls that when it comes to the perimeter, and you're just not going to have that this game. So that we saw that with Jordan Scott, it ended up working out okay because Teng played so well, but you can definitely see that becomes a big problem if God forbid something happens to Jeremy getting a couple fouls too.
And this is a team that and they're not on the level of, say, a Wisconsin by any means, but when they have Francis and Jermichael Davis out there simultaneously, those are 2 guys that are at least, relatively dynamic. Those are the kind of situations that are going to cause problems for Michigan State. You'll notice Purdue really has one guy who's dynamic. Indiana, Wilkerson, but he's not really purely a guard. But again, even if you want to call him a guard, one guy. The rest of their guys don't really do that. Dorn is a 3-point shooter. Conaway doesn't shoot at all. So it's a little bit of a different challenge, and that is going to be something to watch. how efficiently does Michigan State navigate that? Are they able to keep the whole key is you got to keep Fears and Scott out of foul trouble. That's the
Right.
key. If Teng picks up some fouls, if Trey Fort picks up some fouls, okay.
Yeah.
You're not that worried about it. But Scott and Fears, those are the two guys who have to avoid it. And you could throw Carr in there as well.
Well, and you almost wonder too with Carr if you're going to move him off the three, because their threes are not really that dynamic usually.
Absolutely.
And you might have him play
lineup,
against these guys more. If you do, like you said, if you have Davis and France out there, maybe you have him guard one of those guys or play more out of the perimeter than have sort of Scott switch and go to, take it to three. I don't know.
It's tough because on the one hand, you might like what Cohen Carr gives you in terms of length guarding a guard, right? It's going to make it tougher for him to shoot. But Francis in particular, again, his damage really comes more off the dribble than as a jump shooter. And, it's not that Cohen can't deny dribble penetration, but Jeremy Fears is their best in that area.
Well, sure.
So,
but if you got two out there, maybe you need Carr as your second guy trying to prevent that too. I don't know. I mean, as you said, this is your concern going in the tournament, right? That you have when you have the situation, you have 2 guys out there who can do it. So maybe some good opportunity for Michigan State to try and figure out how they counter that.
Well, I don't know that there is an answer short of keeping those guys out of foul trouble.
Well, yeah.
There's nothing you're going to do if you have to play Trey Fort and Teng simultaneously. There is no strategic adjustment that makes that okay.
Right.
It just isn't. Because Michigan State's not going to play a zone.
No.
So there is nothing. So it's not, well, can they tinker with it? No. It's, can those guys stay out of foul trouble? That's it. If they're in foul trouble, then you are left praying that opponents miss open shots because they're going to get them.
All right. So just about wrap it up there. Although I guess I had the one question, we've got Teng's now been shooting, I think the last 4 or 5 games, he's like 47% and he's on, good volume. Jordan Scott's also about 45+% as well. How important do you think it is to keep those guys like going? Because I mean, as you pointed out, 3-point shooting is not going to make or break Michigan State. But when you get to when you're playing in Michigan, you're playing, your second, third round games, you're going to need everything to be working. You can't be a totally failure in one aspect of the game. So I got to imagine it's important for Teng to keep feeling good and hitting as well as Scott. Although I'm a little less worried about Scott. He's been doing it for a little bit longer, I feel.
They're both, yeah, he has, but they're on the season right now. Kerr is up to 39% from 3 over the course of the whole season. Jordan's up to 37%. And in Big Ten play, I think he's knocking on the door of 50.
And he was like 15% for a while there.
Yeah. That's why I mentioned it, that on the season, he's up to 37%, because if you were paying attention in November, the climb has been steep.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, it matters. It also, by the way, matters that, Jeremy Fears on the season is still only at 29%. And it's not like he's consistently had great games, but he's had enough of them, including the game against Indiana where he was 2 for 5, that, you should have reasonable confidence that he can knock down a couple threes in a tournament game. Yeah, it matters. Yes, you want those guys feeling as confident as possible. To say anything otherwise would be stupid. But how critical is it? Is it the biggest thing or the second biggest thing? No. So if you're telling me, or you're asking me, can Michigan State win a tournament game where Teng shoots 1 for 6 from 3? The answer is yes. And it's not a stretch.
No. Well, and I think probably more importantly is how effective is Kohler offensively and Cooper.
That's a bigger deal.
Right. I think that's a bigger deal.
I think that it's hard to envision Michigan State going on a multi-weekend run without Jackson Kohler playing. He doesn't have to be at his absolute best, it doesn't have to be 21-13, but without him playing well, it's hard to imagine that happening.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
That
I
to me
think
is a
that's
much bigger
key.
deal than the other stuff.
I got to imagine, going back to Jeremy Fears with his 3-point shooting, at this point, I can't imagine teams are still going to be just daring him to shoot threes anymore. Do you think? I mean, I know, because they're not like a dummy like us, just looking at the numbers, and not that we're dummies, but you know what I'm saying? Just like you say, oh, well, he's 29% for the year. This is a guy you can leave open and just dare him to shoot. Like a Connor Enright might have been in Indiana, right? Yet, like last game. Like there, you're okay with him taking that shot because more often than not, he's going to miss, and he's going to hit one occasionally, but he's just not very consistent. Whereas I think Fears now, I just don't think, if you're another opposing team, if you've been watching the film the last 5-6 games, you're not going to want to leave him open. I mean, he was 2 for 5, but I think 2 of those of his misses were like the hand grenade, end of the shot clock sort of situation too. So I don't know. I mean, they still count, I guess.
I think that's impossible to answer without knowing who you're talking about, because there absolutely are coaches. There's no question about it. And in fact, they might see one Sunday. I can't remember too much about the first game, whether Michigan consistently went under against him. I suspect
they did. They did.
Yeah. And that would be in line with how Dusty May approaches it, because he's going to look at that. You could say, well, look at the tape, and especially recently, he's looked a lot more confident. That's not going to outstrip what the numbers tell them Fears is. Fears is going to have to outshoot what the numbers say he should do in order for anything to change in that regard against Michigan. And so that's what I mean. It's going to depend. Who are they playing? If they're playing a team where they kind of play it by the book, and if the book says this guy struggles to shoot, they're probably going to go under. They're probably going to sag. They're going to try and tempt him into taking shots. Others might approach it differently. It's if you're playing a team that just has like as a set principle, like I don't know who that was, somebody like Houston, where they're kind of like Michigan State. They don't play this. Yeah, we're gonna roll with the percentages kind of thing.
Right.
We're gonna go out and guard you for 40 minutes. Period. Playing a team like that, well, no, I would expect they would guard him a little more aggressively at least. So who knows? It's like a lot of these other things. Matchup this year is so much more important to me than whether they're on the 3 line or the 2 line. It's so much of a bigger deal, because the one thing I'm really going to be worried about the whole way is facing a team where you've got 2 truly good dynamic scorers in the backcourt. Anything else, I think Michigan State can handle well. But if they're facing that, then that's going to mean there's massive pressure to stay out of foul trouble. And the hard part about that is if those opponents are truly dynamic, well, they're going to put pressure on you.
Yeah, right.
It's going to
exactly.
be hard. It's going to be hard to stay out of foul trouble. So that's for me is the worry that trumps all others at the moment.
All right. So a quick programming note. We will record live after the game. It's a late game because I think it's an 8 o'clock tip. I think it's 8 o'clock, which means I got to get back from East Lansing. It's also senior night. And so we will stay and watch the senior stuff.
Oh, God. So we're not going to be going live till midnight. It's
going to be late. Yeah. So just for people to be aware of that, we'd still love for everyone to join us and to join in. But make sure if you've not had, at least when you're watching the game, once the game is going on, head on over to Slido.com for our FanDuel player of the game. Again, the hashtag is just TFFINOTS. That'll get you to the poll to pick your player of the game. We'll talk about it live afterwards. But again, we'd love for you to join us live if you can for the last game at the Breslin Center for the season. Well, until next time, the Final Four is now on the schedule. Go Green.